So I think in the 45 minutes or so that we've been talking, we've talked a lot about their ideas, and obviously we're not fans of their ideas. But I think there's something more pernicious going on here with some of the tactics, because I don't think it's a coincidence that many of the main players in this regressive left movement have been exposed to be liars, to be plagiarists, to be frauds, to purposely manipulate people's words, to create memes that are knowingly misquoted. All of these things. I don't think that's a coincidence. Now, you may disagree with what Sargon of Akkad says or what Dave Rubin says, but I don't think you would find instances where we maliciously misrepresented people. And I suppose their argument, if you really got them alone, if you could really get an honest moment out of them, which I don't know you could get, but I suppose their argument would be, well, the ends justify the means. And that's just the reverse of how I view the world.
Yeah, no, that is, honestly, that's exactly what it is, right? It's about, there's a lot to unpack here, actually. These people are being primed in universities to be activists, and part of the priming is to give them a good feeling about doing this activism. You know, it's to make them think that they can emotionally reward themselves by saying, yeah, I argued with a misogynist on Twitter, you know, therefore, oh no, I'm not kidding though, that genuinely is. I've seen, you know, pictures of feminist courses where on the wall they have a big Twitter activism is feminism and stuff like this. And it's just like, really? That's, you know, but this is the thing, they're encouraged to be activists. They're encouraged to emotionally reward themselves for being activists. And so,
do you know my theory about never argue with the Twitter egg? That's what I'm going to put on my tombstone one day. Yeah.
I haven't heard that actually, but that's a good one, because I care about ideas and not like people or numbers. So I care when someone with like 5 followers says you're wrong on this, I've got to argue the case. But yeah. I've got to stop it. I've got to stop it.
Wow, I might be a little more evolved than you. That's pretty good.
Yeah, definitely. What was I saying?
That at the schools that there's an intellectual incentive, or there's a feeling incentive, really.
Yeah, there's an emotional incentive, and basically they've got to the point where they've convinced themselves that progressivism or regressivism is the only morally legitimate position to hold. And so anyone not holding this position must be a bad person. And that's everything about progressivism in a nutshell right there. If you aren't a regressive, you are a bad person. If you aren't sacrificing other people's rights for the rights of a group that you don't know, you've got no connection to, but you have been emotionally primed to fight for, then you're a bad person. And so it's okay for me to call you all these terrible labels. I mean, you would have to be pretty damn racist for me to call you a racist. You know, it's a bad label. It's a label with a lot of weight, and yet these people throw it around as if it means nothing. You know.
I always say that, I think I said this to you when I was on your show, that my awakening had a lot to do with that whole Ben Affleck, Sam Harris thing on Real Time. And part of what the craziness of was with that was that Ben threw out racist so quickly that I agree with you. It would take a lot. It would take a lot. There are obvious racists out there, and they should be called out. But if you were arguing with someone, it would take a real special person for them to illuminate that they were racist within 30 seconds.
I mean, yeah, I can only imagine that they came straight out of the gate with it or something. You know, they were like, yeah, okay, black people should be, I don't know, shipped off the cotton plantations or something. I'd be like, okay, well, you're a racist then, aren't you? And they'd be like, well, I wouldn't call myself, whatever. But, you know, these things normally hold a lot of weight, and that's the reason they use them. They use labels as weapons, and they do it for a reason, for a couple of reasons, actually. The first one, obviously, to put you on the back foot. As soon as you're called a racist or a homophobe or a bigot or whatever, then you're defending yourself. You're not defending your ideas. You're not attacking their ideas. You're defending yourself as a person. And I mean, that's in itself a logical fallacy called an ad hominem, you know, to attack the person rather than the ideas. And you will find that they do this a lot. So basically, right, the answer to this is to just say, in your opinion, at the end of it. So they'll say, you're a racist. And you say, well, in your opinion.
Right.
Because they'll say, you know, you're a racist, you're a sexist, you're a bigot. So, well, in your opinion, you know, I'm not, and I know I'm not, and nothing that I've said would make any reasonable person think that. But you are not a reasonable person, and therefore you're going to label me as a racist or a bigot or whatever. And honestly, what you've just given me is your opinion. It's not an objective statement of fact. It's like when they use the word problematic. They'll say, oh, that's problematic. It's like, well, can you explain to me what problematic means?
Right.
Does it mean immoral? Does it mean wrong? Does it mean illegal? No. It means transgressive to progressivism or to feminism. And it's basically the same as sinful in the Catholic Church, or it's the same as haram in Islam. You know, this is transgressive to my ideology. It's not there's something wrong, and it's not an objective statement of fact. It's I don't like what you've done.
Right. So I love that, because it goes to show that they want a certain intellectual or ideological purity. And that's what the church would want out of you, or any sort of authoritarian view would want an intellectual and ideological purity. Not intellectual, purely ideological purity. It's usually not that intellectual, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
They want an ideological purity out of you. And what that does, you know, I'm seeing this right now in our Democratic debate last week between Bernie and Hillary. They were arguing over who's the bigger progressive. And it's like, guys, that's not what the fight should be about. It should be about, if you're on the left, it should be about who is standing up for liberal principles more, not who fits this narrow definition. Because guess what? Then all you do, as we've said a zillion times, is you hand the debate over to the right, and
absolutely,
then you get Donald Trump.
They're stewing in their own juices there as well. He's like, no, I'm the bigger progressive. So look, you don't need to worry about convincing people about who's the bigger progressive. Progressives are going to vote for you. You know, liberals are going to vote. The people you want to convince are the swing voters who aren't dyed in the wool progressives. They're the people who aren't, you know, who are concerned about issues, who are concerned about policies, you know, who are concerned about what you're actually going to do rather than, you know, ideological brownie points, you know, that. And so, yeah, it's just this little circle jerk where they've stewed in their own ideology for so long, they don't understand how they're being viewed from the outside. And like you said, it's driving people to the right, you know? It's absolutely driving people to the right.
So then what do we do? Because that is not us, right? We're the ones that are trying to defend classical liberalism. I'm sure you get tons of emails and tweets and all that stuff that I get all the time about, I see this split, this has happened. I get people telling me they're afraid and embarrassed to call themselves on the left. I get other people saying they won't post things on Facebook because they don't want to get called a racist. So all of these things. So if there's this growing group of people, which there absolutely is, I have no doubt about it, what do we do to keep this message going?
Okay, so the great thing about what's happening is that it's interesting because, I mean, like I said, you had Milo Yiannopoulos on your show. He was the only journalist who was prepared to cover Gamergate initially. And I've grown to become friends with him. And people find it really odd because he's a conservative and I'm a liberal. And I just try to explain to them, look, right, we've come to the point where it's not really about political affiliation to left and right. Mm-hmm. It's about whether we can agree on reality. You know, we can interpret this reality and have our own opinions in any way. I'm sure that he's got a lot of opinions that I disagree with. Mm-hmm. But we can agree that the numbers are such, the events are as follows. You know, whereas the progressive left will lie to you. They will lie to themselves. Like we said, they will cherry pick their narrative. They'll choose several data points, leave out the ones that contradict what they've said, and then if you don't agree with their narrative, they consider you persona non grata. You may as well be, you know, Bill O'Reilly or something like that in their mind.
And just to be very clear, you're not just saying something for the sake of saying it. I mean, I have literally seen this happen to me. Just to be very clear, I mean, this is exactly what's happened to me, which I now wear as a badge of pride, by the way.
Yes. Well, this is one of the things, when you first introduce people to this and they don't know anything about it, I honestly think there is a lot of, they protect themselves with audacity. And, I mean, I'm a big fan of military history, and audacity is one of those things that wins many wars because it's so unexpected. And I really think that the things they do are so audacious that it's hard to persuade people they're genuinely doing them, because people hear it and think, I would never do that. Right. No one would do that. You know, I wouldn't do it. I can't imagine anyone doing it. That's not happening. You're a liar. You know, and they think that the person relating the information is the one telling the lie. And so the progressives, I think, you know, they really, really take up on this and say, well, that's because he's a racist, he's sexist, and all these things. And then the person has to experience them acting as they act. And I've had so many people come back to me and go, man, I thought you were full of nonsense when I first said, but that was exactly how they are. Yeah. Exactly how they are. And I'm like, yeah, mate, I told you. Honestly, don't worry about it. You know, just no harm, no foul sort of thing. It happens to everyone, because at first, when you first hear it, it sounds like nonsense. You know, you can't believe anyone would act this way, and yet they do.
Do you sometimes think that maybe the best way to beat them at this point is just to ignore them? Because I think over the last 6 months, between what we do here, what you do, what many other people are doing, especially in the digital space now, and what Bill Maher's done a little bit more in the mainstream. They've been exposed, and I think because, as you said, they're stewing in their juices now. Part of me is just like, let's just ignore them, and then then there's another piece of me that says we have to keep on the attack. Which do you think would be a better
I think ignoring them is a very dangerous tactic. I think the problem with that is that you hand the initiative to them, and you say, I'm not going to pay attention, to what you're doing, and therefore whatever it is they do, you're not really aware of, and suddenly something will come at you that you're not prepared for. And also it gives them the ground to continue propagating their ideological position.
Yeah.
That gets them, there's no resistance. And so, I mean, it's on Twitter, yeah, sure, maybe there's a lot of resistance, but like, if you get a group, a little delegation of regressives who come to a workplace and they say, oh, we'd like to talk to you about women's equality, and you think, oh, God, go on then, and so your boss might he's just a good guy, he doesn't know, he's just like, oh, right, okay, well, I'll do whatever I can, and suddenly these people are now advising the upper echelons of this company, and then they start enforcing ideological conformity. And then suddenly you're in this position where, I mean, this happened to major game studios. It's happened to like Games Workshop. There are lots of people who have fallen prey to the velvet glove of social justice that contains within it the iron fist.
Yeah.
But it's just really well hidden. So no, I don't think we can just. I think we have to fight them, and we have to show people that there is a better alternative. That's the eternal point. You've got to provide a better alternative, and universal liberal principles, in my opinion, are the highest alternative. There isn't anything better. You can't get anything more fair than normal liberal principles. So I honestly think just pushing these, showing people that these are the best way to do things, and that this not only encourages equal treatment of people under the law or in any kind of social situation, but it also pushes people to be the best that they can be. It doesn't encourage them to be victims. Mm-hmm. It doesn't encourage them to get, to be depressed and to milk it. There's no room for frauds when you come to these sorts of meritocratic principles. People have to work. They have to push themselves and become better. And it's about raising the human condition rather than dragging it down, which is everything about regressives.
Yeah, well, naturally, I believe in what you're saying, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I really, more than anything else, I should thank you, because, there were a couple key people that helped my awakening, and when I had that conversation with you on your channel, it was one of the first times that I really started talking about this stuff. So you were definitely a key piece in that, so I appreciate that. And I appreciate all the work you do, and everyone can find out more of Sargon's take on Gamergate, feminism, regressives, and plenty more over on his YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Sargon of Akkad 100. And Sargon, Carl, or do you have any other names that I need to know about?
No, I think that's just the two.
Those are the big two? All right. Well, I appreciate it, and thank you guys for watching, and we'll do it again next week.